And the day is upon us. The last stop on the road to the Kentucky Derby out west is right here at Santa Anita Park. It is Run Happy Santa Anita Derby Day. I'm Dan Tordjman with America's Best Racing. Excited to welcome in my good friends Ellis, Starr, and Carothers for what promises to be one of the more memorable runnings of this race, if for no other reason that we're finding out just here as we're coming on air with you that there is a significant scratch in this race. The horse who is predicted to be either the favorite or the co-favorite in the race, Go Rocket Ride, the runner-up in the San Felipe Stakes, he will be scratched. So he will not be running in the Run Happy Santa Anita Derby. And significant for another reason, too, because as far as I could tell, he was the main speed horse in this race. He was the horse that was going to dictate how fast they went, and of course it was up to a couple of others to potentially press. But let's start with you, Ren. What do you make of the scratch, and what do you make of how this might impact the race ultimately?
Well, I mean, I think we could still see some speed from one in Vermilion for, possibly, going out there. Just a side note on that horse, that was the horse who kind of got himself hung on the gate there last out in the Sunland Derby. And he probably shouldn't have run that day. So who knows what he'll do here. He's not in my mix of any of my top horses. I'm actually going with a horse who I feel is getting kind of forgotten about as my top choice. And I'm going with the number 6, National Treasure. I don't know. It's been quiet out there. I think, perusing people's opinions, I've only found one person online who's like, I like National Treasure. And so I kind of felt by myself a bit, and I thought I was losing my mind. I reached out to another friend of mine. I said, who do you like? Because I didn't want to influence him. And I got back National Treasure with a heart. Well, this horse is working like a monster, right? He was supposed to run in the San Felipe. He was out. He had a tender quarter, so they didn't want to run him. Which was the wise decision, obviously. The last time he'd run, it was an off the lap. It was his first start back since the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and he was running there, first start as a 3-year-old, and there was that mishap going on in the stretch. He had an angle out. He was ultimately beaten just the length. This is a pretty big horse. I think he shows a lot of guts and determination in the way in which he runs. We did see Newgate go out of there, put up a 100 buyer figure, winning the Robert B. Lewis. And as far as the pedigree goes, I mean, I just love it. You have Quality Road on top. You've got Dagli d'Oro there on the bottom. Those are horses who were really good with seasoning, and they could carry speed, both of them. And I like that, we saw him go out there, win on debut. He put up some fast fraction spring 6 furlongs, but he is a 2-turn horse based on what I have seen and what he can do. And so even though he got beat soundly by stablemate Cave Rock, it doesn't really bother me too much. I'm very excited to see what he's going to do here in his second start as a 3-year-old. First start now for Tim Yakteen. Of course, I do respect Tim's horse. Practical Move. I got to give you kudos again, Dan, because you tabbed that horse. My only question with him is, did he kind of get the aces trip that day, right? He had the inside. He just kind of bided his time. To his credit, there was a point in which he kind of had to be reined in a bit, and he was getting a bit headstrong. That can take a horse out of stride, and he didn't let that bother him. I love the way he finished. He finished with, like there's more in the tank there. So obviously very impressive. But the horse I'm going to move up ahead of him is going to be Skinner. Skinner had that wide trip. It does say that he was off a step slow. I will say he did not look dramatic to me. I don't think that was so much the issue. I think the main issue for him was a wide trip throughout. I mean, when he came around that turn for home, he was about 5-6 wide. And when he came into the stretch, there was a horse to his inside that kind of, put a hitch in the giddy up and getting him to change his lead with alacrity there. Oh, I just knocked my
alacrity. Well, I mean, you use alacrity. You can do whatever you want, pretty much.
Yeah, right. But so I love the way he finished. He finishes like a horse who is a classically bred horse who wants to go further. I know we kind of get hung up on this. Oh, he's bred to go further. He should get it all. Obviously, his pace is going to make the race. But he did finish like he wasn't just grinding and passing tired horses. He looked like he was actually closing there. And, Curlin over anything AP Indy. It's just such a great cross. You've got Malachi, who's out of an AP Indy mare and Dreaming of Julia. On the flip side, with a horse who has actual speed, you've got Cody's Wish, who's out of a Tappet mare, and Tappet's by Pulpit by AP Indy. So it's a very potent cross, and we know that Sheriff likes to develop his horses into athletes, kind of chisels them like a piece of art. So I think he should be even better here. So I'm going to go National Treasure, Skinner, and then Practical Move.
Okay, well, no surprise that Ren is defaulting to pedigree in coming up with her selections here. Ellis, you know that I'm a pace guy, and so for me, you know, the question was right off the bat, who goes to the front now? Ren mentioned one in Vermilion. You also have a horse on the outside named Low Expectations. Jessica Pfeiffer, who's out here helping us out with some content, spoke with jockey Umberto Rispoli yesterday, and Rispoli basically confirmed that he was going to try to get to the front anyway. Now, without Go Rocket Ride, his move to the front should be all that much easier. The other one to look at potentially from a pace perspective is the first ever Japanese horse to run in the Santa Anita Derby, and that's Mandarin Hero. I watched a few of his replays. Has a bit of speed. He's generally forwardly placed, but not on the lead. So of that mix, where do you land in terms of how this pace unfolds?
Well, you have to draw a line through one in Vermilion's last race. As Ren said, the horse was fractious, got caught in the gate, probably shouldn't have run. The route, the only two-turn race before that was wire to wire. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that Barrios is going to use his position with two horses inside that don't have the same amount of early speed, and neither of them wears blinkers either. One Vermilion does, to go for the lead. Low Expectations did rate in the Sunland Derby. That was a race again that didn't have it had a fast pace, but not a sizzling fast pace, as would have been the case with One Vermilion, who ran that half mile in 46 and change before that. Low Expectations ran the same 46 and change in his starter allowance win, but he broke his maiden claim. I wouldn't give him much of a shot. So I think there's enough pace to go 46, 47, which sets up Skinner, who's my top pick by far now, perfectly. This is exactly what John Sheriff did 2 years ago in the Santa Anita Derby with Honor AP. He was third in the San Felipe, as Ren says. Sheriff takes his time. Third in the San Felipe, won this race, or second in the San Felipe, I should say. And this year, Skinner was third in the San Felipe, lengthened such behind Go Rocket Ride. Before that, he won his 3-year-old debut, first time, actually second time routing, but his other route was in the American Pharoah. He wasn't as mature as a 2-year-old he is at 3. And he's moved up really nicely from a 94 to a 103 echo-based speed figure. There's just everything I like about him. Curlin, of course, Nest, Malathat, Good Magic, Known Agenda, the 2021 Florida Derby winner. There's 9 and 10 furlongs written all over Skinner. Should absolutely love it. He was off a bit slow. You'll notice it in his maiden win when he broke, even though 6th of 7, he was 4 back, but he was dead last and 8 back at the first quarter in the San Felipe. If Espinosa gets up a little closer, maybe in this race now that we have 8 horses, maybe 4th or 5th, he'll be in a perfect spot. So I really like Skinner a lot here. It's my Santa Anita race today. I think I made him 2 to 1, but knowing the Go Rocket Rides out, I probably would have made him 9 to 5 as minimum odds. Practical Move, you have to use him on multi-race tickets and exacta box. He continues to improve. That was his first start off a layoff. He should run better. 108 figure is great. And as you mentioned, Mandarin Hero's the unknown here. Now, I watched his videos. I had a different take than you. I think he runs from much farther back than I like. And those were sandy tracks, so I'm not sure how he's going to. He made a decent move from 7th to 2nd, then kind of stalled, and then got going again late. We'll just have to see how Kazushi Kimura can ride him. And of course, Kimura did so well last year at Woodbine. He's impressed. He's done fairly well at Santa Anita with 10 wins. He's very consistent, too, because he has 10 wins, 9 seconds, and 15 thirds. This is a jockey you're definitely going to use in your trifectas. The other one, National Treasure, I'm going to take a knock on him completely. And sorry, Ren.
It's okay.
National Treasure.
I'm about to disagree with both of you, so don't apologize.
Okay, well, good. All I can say about National Treasure is when I see a running line for the last 3 calls, which of course is, about a quarter mile to go, an eighth mile to go and finish. National Treasure 333, 233, 222. This horse just doesn't have it mentally. He does not know what his job is to win a race. And, no offense, he's probably very talented, but he does not want to win a race. And so I'm not going to put him on my tickets. My play is going to be Skinner to win. Skinner over Practical Move, National Treasure, and Mandarin Hero in exactas and tries.
So Ellis picking on the intellect and psychological resolve of National Treasure.
Yeah.
A lot can change.
Really,
A lot can change from 2 to 3. But hey, I mean, this is what it is. You're playing against your fellow horse players. That's what
Yep.
makes this sport so great, and how you
Yep.
can make money.
Yeah, and to your point, Ren, I mean, a lot can change even from early in the 3-year-old season to midway
Yeah.
through to the later part of the 3-year-old season. So, horses who today are not ready might be ready as we move into Breeders' Cup season later in the year. So, something to look out for. So, like I said, I would disagree with both of you respectfully. Ellis, I think you acknowledge Skinner is not a horse who breaks very well. He's generally, has a lot of work to do late. With the defection of Go Rocket Ride, I really don't see how he gets up. And Ren, I know you like him as well. I think he can potentially get points and get the points he needs to make it to the Derby. Maybe it's a horse you like in the Kentucky Derby. And speaking of points, you had Go Rocket Ride, who the reports we're seeing from our friends at FanDuel TV, he spiked a fever. And because he spiked a fever, he now is stuck at 20 points. And unless he comes back a week from now and ships out east, he's not going to have enough points to make it into the Kentucky Derby, which is unfortunate. Another horse with 20 points is low expectations on the outside. Rispoli said he's going to the front. I think you lose nothing by sending as hard as you can and hoping you can hang on. If you hang on for third, you probably have enough points to get into the Kentucky Derby. So there is that sort of maneuvering, and I think all of these connections are looking at that stuff and reassessing where they need to be. With a horse like Practical Move, doesn't need the points. We said the same thing about Forbidden Kingdom in this race last year, and unfortunately he ran so poorly and had so many issues there that he didn't even run in the Kentucky Derby. So nothing guaranteed. A lot can change here. By the end of the day, we might have a completely different picture. I'm going to give you my pick now, and I want you guys to come back at me. I'm going to go with the horse on the rail, the one horse. I don't get it. 20 to 1
I don't
morning
get
line.
it, Dan. I don't
Look
get
at the
it.
connections. Redham Racing. It's Doug O'Neill, Mario Gutierrez. They've been here before. They've done this. This is a horse who's an improving horse. I watched the replay of his most recent race. It's maiden special weight. He beat the 2-horse Dazzle Me Silver, covered a lot more ground than the runner-up in that race, and he looked his best in the closing stages. This is the horse who I think is going to take a step forward. He's going to be able to save ground, obviously. He's on the rail. Yes, he's got to make a jump, but he's in that high 80 range when you're talking about buyers. The only horse in here who's, obviously clearly, better than the rest is Practical Move on those speed figures. If we expect Practical Move not to be fully cranked here because he doesn't need to be, if we expect maybe he regresses a little bit, or, Ren, to your point, if we expect he's not cut out for this distance or longer, right, which is what you told me last time, I think Practical Move doesn't win today. I think he hits the board, and I think for me, I don't get it as a horse who's improving for connections who have been here and who have done this before is an intriguing play for me at 20 to 1 in the morning line.
How hard do you want me to come after you, Dan?
As hard as you possibly can, my brother.
At this time of year, in March and April, you don't go from a maiden win to a graded stakes winner. I could see you using him at 20 to 1. Absolutely, you've got me talked into throwing him in my 7. I'm going to throw the 7 now over the 1, 5, 6, 8. But it's just really tough. I did a quick study, as a matter of fact, thinking that someone might pick him on the show yesterday, and I think it was the last year. Maiden to graded stakes is 0 for 8 with 1/3, not even a second. So just a comment of how hard it is to make the jump now. You could do it in February, of course. You could do it in the fall, but to do it in March and April was really, really tough. And that's about the only real criticism I can say about I don't get it. Not being able to win this race.
That's fair, and for that reason, I wouldn't play him at anything less than 10 to 1. But if I'm going to get my price, I'm going to take a swing. And also just want to point out, in terms of watching replays, you go 2 back, take a look at what happened at the break when Skinner beat him in 2 races back. I don't get it. Essentially, almost fell to his face. I mean, he did. He stumbled out of the gate and still recovered, made a wide move, got up and finished 4th there, almost finished 3rd. I thought that was impressive to show that sort of, that resiliency or that bounce back and be able to recover from a move from adversity like that. So, Ren, what do you think? Is there anybody else in this field that we're missing?
I mean, I don't think there's anybody we're missing, and I'm not going to knock you. Hey, you had practical move last. Anything can happen in horse racing. It really can. The one thing I will say is that Doug has got to be tired. I saw him yesterday at Keeneland. So if he's there on hand in person to saddle, I'm sure he's tired. But yeah, I mean, at least you know that. I mean, the horse has got the pedigree to go along. He's won, going around the mile and the 16th. Am I using him? No, personally, I'm not. But I'm not going to knock you. But I mean, really, for me, the only question mark is Mandarin Hero. It's really hard to make any sense necessarily of what their times are compared to our times. I mean, like Ellis was talking about, the track surface is much different. We do know how amazing their training program has been and what they've been doing internationally, right? I would lean toward this isn't going to be one of those instances where they get us again, but it could be, and I think it's a great honor that they've brought this horse over, and I'm very appreciative of that. Anytime that we can see a horse, come internationally and try to get into our hollowed Kentucky Derby gate is an amazing thing. And this one, I will say, just, for a fun note, Fuji Kiseki, the broodmare sire there, is a scion of Sunday Silence. And you always, love that, right? Harkening back to such a great horse who means a lot to us here in the United States, who's gone on to be so internationally influential.
Just in case he runs a big race, I figured I should mention the horse, Dazzle Me Silver. The 2-horse trained by Keith DeSormo, ridden by his brother, Kent DeSormo. You see video of him in the morning, captured again by Jessica Pfeiffer. We thank her for that. And that's essentially your field. That's the makeup of this race here, the RUNHAPPY Santa Anita Derby. I think it's going to be a fun running of it. Post time for this race is 2:43 Pacific time, 5:43 on the East Coast. Looking around Santa Anita Park on this big weekend, there's an energy here, and we're super excited to be out here. Going to be a spectacular day of racing, which also includes a mandatory payout in the Pick 6, which starts in race 7 today. That's at 3:20 Pacific time. But before all that happens, it's the RUNHAPPY Santa Anita Derby, as I mentioned, at 2:43 Pacific time. The Santa Anita Derby, a lot of this stuff I'm sure Ren can recite off the top of her head because she's got that kind of memory. But for somebody like me, I had this written down. Since 2005, the Santa Anita Derby has produced 5 Kentucky Derby winners, the most recent being Justify. And in the past 50 years, 14 horses came out of the Santa Anita Derby and then went on to capture the Kentucky Derby. So obviously a fairly meaningful race on the road to Louisville.
That's for sure.
All right. Well, I'm going to thank Ellis. I'm going to thank Ren. And I want to thank you for tuning in. We'll have a lot more from Santa Anita Park throughout the day, so keep it right here, and we'll catch you a little later.
It's America's original sport, and no one covers it better than americasbestracing.net. From the sport to the lifestyle, the best races, horses, and destination venues, cocktails, gambling, fashion, and more. americasbestracing.net is a sport for you.